welcome to our next lesson in our Microsoft Word series revolving around Microsoft Word 2013. Today we're going to be continuing with our aesthetic controls and in particular our overall page layout. So what I have open here will be familiar to you. This is an article that we've been working on for a little while now. You can see that the title is Different Page Layout Demo Doc or Demo Complete. What I'd like you to do is open up your columns document that you submitted, so that's saved in your Microsoft OneNote. Open that up and save a new copy of it. You can call it Page Layout Demo or something along those lines. Once you've done that, come on back and we'll continue. So now that you've done that, let's just double check, make sure that your title for your article is in a title style and that all of your headings are also titled. And this is just important because of the spacing, and your document may end up looking different if you've got different settings for your headings and so forth. So what we're going to do here is we're going to select our entire article, hit Control A, I'm going to flip over to Layout, Columns, and set it into one column just for a moment, just to demonstrate something here. So we've been working on sort of style elements, we've been working on paragraphs and indents and that sort of thing. In this article, though, what we have already is some basic automatic formatting that you may not be aware of. So going up here in my Layout tab, and hitting paragraph drawer, I can open up what we're used to seeing, this dialog right here, which allows us to change indentation, whether that's just the first line or it's a hanging indent, that sort of thing. But there's a second tab called Line and Page Breaks. And there's a section called Pagination, which is a great word. I guess it's a verb meaning to make pages, or I don't really know. It kind of seems made up to me, but maybe I'm wrong. So in pagination, we have a default selected function called widow/orphan control. So what's a widow, what's an orphan? Well, with paragraphs, if you have, say, one line of text along the bottom here, it's a brand new paragraph and you've just started, and then the paragraph continues on the next page. If you have a single line of text here from a new paragraph, this is called a widow. It's been left on its own. Similarly, if we were to have this whole paragraph here, but this last line of the paragraph appeared on the next page, you would have an orphan. Now, basically, this sort of comes from standard typeset practice, which basically says that those single line divisions of paragraphs makes it more difficult for readers to understand what they're reading. So, as you can see here, this line that we have in this text has ended. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit here. This line has ended slightly earlier. This paragraph has ended earlier than this paragraph on my right page here. So they don't quite line up. And let me just see if I can throw rulers on. Nope, it's not going to let me drag down. So that's fine. So either way, our line here ends up going lower towards our bottom margin than this line does. So that anti-widow, anti-orphan effect is already functioning. If I go to my paragraphs and deactivate widow and orphan control, you'll see some changes. So immediately the first change I notice is I've got a widow added right to the bottom of my page here. It's a single line of text. It continues on to the top of the second page here as a new paragraph. There may be times when you want to deactivate widow and orphan control. You may want to do it for a single paragraph, which you absolutely can do. Looks like we've got another widow right here. So I'm going to activate that again and spruce up our stuff. So that's why sometimes you'll have pages that have a little bit of extra space at the bottom that you're not otherwise expecting. Going back into that paragraph control, we have a couple other functions. Keep with next. Let's select that. And essentially what you're doing is forcing two lines from an existing paragraph, at least two lines, to continue with the paragraph on the next page. So you can see this first paragraph here has ended even earlier because 2 lines from that paragraph have transferred over to the next page. So basically this function is requiring any paragraph that you have going to continue on to the next page, and it won't continue for just 1 line because that would make it an orphan. It'll continue for at least 2 lines. You may choose to do this if you want to finish your idea after a page turn instead of starting a new idea just before a page turn where you might only have 1 or 2 lines of text. But basically what it does, again, is it glues the last 2 lines of text from a paragraph to whatever page the next paragraph starts on. I'm going to undo that. And we'll hit back into our paragraph drawer here. We can choose keep lines together. This is not going to have any effect on our existing paragraph, and mostly is not really going to be particularly useful. You can also do a page break before. I'm not exactly certain why you would want to do this. What it essentially does is it breaks up your document. Every time you have a new paragraph, it creates a page break, so you start a new page for each paragraph. Again, don't really know why you'd want to do that. We don't really want to do that here. So, but go ahead and spend a couple minutes playing around with those options just to see what they do. You can select individual paragraphs and then come back. So now that you've had some chance to play around with that, we're going to talk about page breaks and section breaks. So up here at the top of our layout function, or our layout tab in the ribbon, we have the breaks tool. And the breaks tool allows us to basically break up the text in some way or another. So we can select page break, for example, and a page break will basically do exactly that. It'll break the page into a new page wherever I insert it. So I go breaks, page break, and bang, all the text that appeared after this cursor mark, including the extra space of going down, like the extra double spacing before the next title, got moved over to the next page. So wherever I created, I could do a page break right here, for example. We'll do break, page. So wherever I put that cursor, a break will appear and it'll move over to a next page. There's all sorts of reasons to do this. It may have to do with how your paragraphs line up. There's many reasons why you may choose to do a page break. You may also do it simply because you've got a graphic and you want that graphic to be the only thing on the page beyond a certain amount of text, like this, for example. You can also do column breaks. So when we were previously in our 3-column view, column break would be exactly like a page break, except it just cuts off the text and forces it to start in the next column. So if you just want some blank space at the bottom of a column, or if you're starting a new idea and you've got a title going to the next column, column break makes a lot of sense. Text wrapping, this just gives you more control over how your text moves around objects on a page. We're not going to be really using that, so we won't go into it. And then we have section breaks. So section breaks basically indicate to Microsoft Word that something in your formatting is about to change. So if you insert a section break, you can choose whether you want it to be continuous, which means that the new section starts immediately. Wherever you've got your cursor blinking, a new section has started, so you can change your formatting. This could be to change the entire theme, for example, of just a section of the document. So all of your basic font changes, size changes, that sort of thing. You can also have different sections for even pages and odd pages. Again, that could just be because you've got a book style binding and you want to have the left page always be the same in terms of formatting and the right page to always be the same. So you might have images on the right page and text on the left page every time, for example. That just an idea off the top of my head. So when we have a next page section break, let's start with this one. I'm going to use the bottom of my paragraph here, and I'm going to insert a next page section break. The only thing that's happened is a new space has been moved in here, and that's just because of where we've inserted the break. And then we'll do another next page section break. So the reason that I did that is I wanted this entire page to be clear. And we're going to use this section break in this case for our Trappist system image. Now this image is quite long, and even if I were to move it over to my left margin and hold down shift and tag the size toggle, it's not going to be able to take up all the space. This is not a really good usage of space. So maybe I want to change the orientation of this page, but not the entire document. So if I go over here, still in the design or in the layout section of the ribbon, if I hit orientation, I've got the option to choose landscape. Landscape flips everything wide, and there we go. Because I created a section break, the only this page, because this page exists entirely in its own section. So you remember that I did a section break for starting next page here. I did the same thing in front of the next set of text so that that text would be moving over to a new page. And so this one page exists as its own section. As such, I can control its formatting. So I changed its orientation. I can change it back. If I hadn't created those section breaks, it would be the same thing. What would actually happen instead would be the entire document would switch over to landscape, and I definitely don't want that. So that's why I created those section breaks. So once again, I'm just going to change the orientation of this single page to landscape, and now I can make my image larger, take up more of the overall page, and now I've got it centered. So those green lines pop up here when it detects the toggles for your image or artifact are centered across the page's margins. So there we go. Now we've got a document that is, well, it's uglier actually, but we just wanted to use this to illustrate the page and section breaks, I should say. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to, or I'm going to undo all of this. What I'd like you to do is just save this as page layout demo document 1, and then we'll go back, and then I'll get you to open up another copy of that document that has all of our text in columns, because that's what we're going to work from. So I'm just undoing to get there. You could actually simply save your document if you wanted to, and then just do all the undo functions to get back to where you want it to be. For some reason my picture is not going back where I wanted it. Don't know why, but that's okay. So we'll put it there. So you should be back to this general layout. So the page layout functions gives you, or the page setup drawer gives you a whole bunch of options in terms of using non-standard settings, whether that's margins, whether that's page sizes, that sort of thing. So the first thing we're going to do is look at page size. By default, because when we went with a file and we did new document, this blank document, this is actually a template. It's got our margins set for us and all our text set for us, font sizes, etc. So that's already been preset for us. So if I don't want to work within a letter-sized document, and I could want to work in a different document size for all sorts of reasons. I could be creating a poster, for example. This could be for a newspaper article, and as you know, newspapers are very, very large, not anywhere remotely close to what a letter-sized document is going to be. So if I drop into my size here, I've actually got all sorts of defaults already set. I can go more paper sizes here and choose my paper size. So I can go with letter size. These letter, legal, tabloid, these are all names of standard paper sizes. So you can actually go and purchase paper that is listed as this size, and your printer, the printer that you're using, will understand that when you select A3. It knows how big the paper is going to be. This doesn't mean that every printer supports that. You know, small home printers usually support standard letter size and probably legal, which is 8.5 by what is it? 8.5 by 13, 8.5 by 14. Yeah, 8.5 by 14, so same width but just longer. So it still fits into a standard envelope that you'd get in the mail. It just has to be folded one extra time. But larger printers, if those are professional printing presses, or even sometimes the ones we have at school, have access to more print sizes. So what we'll do is we're going to choose A3 as our print size. It's a very odd sort of size of paper, but it's quite a bit larger. And because I didn't select my whole document when I was doing that, my first page is staying as separate. So let's Control A, change size, and we'll hit A3. There we go. Now, unfortunately, I have a little bit of an orphan here. This is not an orphan in the true sense, in that it's not a single line, but that is not going to work. We've got one large document, and then this just extra holdover text here. So what I'm going to do then is work with the margins. So still in our page setup here, we can go into margins. Now by default, this normal setup here gives us a 1-inch margin at each of the top, left, right, and bottom. But in a newspaper, we want to fit as much print onto a single page as possible. The reason for that being, well, the more text on one page, the less pages you use, the less it costs you to print a newspaper. So let's try, well, I'm going to go into custom margins to begin with. We're going to keep the top margin and the bottom margin at 0.8 inches and shrink the left and right down to 0.5 inches. And we'll hit OK. And now all of our text fits onto a single page. This is much more attractive, and now you can see this is actually starting to look quite a lot like a single newspaper page. So there's all sorts of different situations, not just a newspaper, wherein you might want to change your margins. You might have a lot of text. It could really be this situation where you've got this one page, maybe you're making an essay or something like that, and you're just getting one extra orphaned section of text, and you just decide, no, I don't want that. I'm going to shrink my margins down by, say, 0.1 inches so that you can fit more text onto a single page. Then this gives you that freedom to sort of fit more onto one page. So although this page looks very similar to a letter document, it does visibly have sort of it's a little bit wider, a little bit taller, like even just looking at it once or from far away. But we are now left with font that also looks quite small when you're zoomed out. But that's fine. This is actually going to print out on a very large document. We can see here our ruler going all the way to about 11 inches in width. So that basically, if you took a letter piece of paper, a single normal piece of paper, and you turned it landscape wise, that's how wide this would be. This would be as wide as a regular piece of letter paper is long, and we're at about 17 inches, 16 inches in vertical length. So quite a large document. We could spruce it up a little bit by taking our quote and also toggling it larger so that it takes up a little bit more space. Maybe increasing the font size so it also fits. So it's got a little bit more visual impact, and I might move this over to this side just so that it's not so close to a title. And just like that, we've got a completely reformatted document which is still visually appealing, but now we fit everything onto a single page. Okay, that's all for this lesson, just some short basic stuff. This is being able to manipulate your margins and where your page breaks are is a very, very important skill in Microsoft Word. So you may find yourself coming back to this video to remember where all the toggles are and that sort of thing, and that's just fine. But anyways, you should end up with basically two documents from this lesson. The first one being quite a bit different from this one, where we've got our A3 paper size. So save them both, submit them on your OneNote, and that's all for today. See you later.